Jeffrey Sachs, you might have seen him from time to time. I don't know whether he is on mainstream very much. The couple of times I've seen him, he's not been on things that have been on mainstream, but that's, of course, has a lot to do with the fact that I don't watch mainstream. And also, I'm more interested in watching something that is a longer, more in depth conversation than what you get on the mainstream. And of course, on the mainstream, you get these questions that are just sort of stupid, and they're couched in such a way and with such an attitude that the person answering the question either gets defensive in a way or gets aggressive because they're sort of fed up with the way the answers are, the questions are asked and things like that. But I've noticed that this particular presentation, it's on. I've seen it several different places, and but I want you to take a look at it down below. I'll give you this. Jeffrey Sachs is. This is from Wikipedia. Jeffrey Sachs is an American economist and public policy analyst who is a professor at Columbia University, where excuse me, he was a former director of the Earth Institute. He worked on topics of sustainable development and economic development. Sachs is the director of the Center of Sustainable Development at Columbia University and the president of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. So that was, as of this, whenever this Wikipedia thing was written, then that's the status. So you sort of get an idea of who he is. This is, when I heard him talking about it, I was just sort of, wow, listen to what he's saying. It's certainly not what you're hearing from our foreign policy people in any administration. And his main point in the end is that nations need to have mutual respect between themselves. And a lot of the way the politics of the world, and including the wars, which is just a form of politics, at least as we were practicing it, he's saying, we're not respecting other nations. We just go to war with them to get what we want. We undermine them to get what we want, etc. I'm sorry about my throat. And in particular, he's addressing the Ukrainian-Russian war that's going on right now. As I listened to him, it struck me that I remember very clearly that after the Berlin Wall fell, that's the end of the 80s, Russia was good. And Putin, who eventually took over Russia when the former president was sort of going downhill, and Putin stepped in and took over. He was like on the team of the former presidents, and so anyway, good. Everything was good for 10 years. Everything was good with Putin. Nice guy, doing great things, and all of a sudden, about around 2005, somewhere in that area, it seems. I remember. I was watching PBS. I watch a lot of PBS, or I used to. In fact, up until just a few years ago, maybe 5 years now, or so, I would watch Washington Week in Review. That was something I did. Washington Week in Review, and listen to the discussion between these reporters about what was going on in the world, but it just got to a point where it was ridiculously slanted, nonsensical, and it was just propaganda. That's all it was. There's no point in listening to people say a particular line and not have any other views, any other understandings or anything. And the moderate was so moderate that it was wishy-washy nothing. So there was no back and forth. There was just this over here view. So, but I was watching. I remember in PBS, which I would watch for news a lot. I watched all the news, CBS, NBC, ABC, and PBS. I watched them all to get sort of a rounded view of things, because obviously reporters are going to, have their particular interest or things that they want to point out or whatnot, and it's not always, doesn't always give you the complete picture. So my interest was to watch a lot of sources in order to get a better picture of what the whole picture of what was going on in the situation. And along comes this sort of documentary, expose, whatever you want to call it, an hour-long kind of thing by this, I remember it was a woman reporter. And she was pointing out what a villain, what a thug Putin was. Now, this was out of the blue. I'd never heard anything like this. Putin was now a thug. And from then on out, Putin has been a thug. Now, I'm not saying Putin's not a thug. I'm saying, why was he a good guy up until a certain point? Why was Saddam Hussein a good guy up until a certain point? Okay? That's the thing that concerns me, is that we get these narratives that just switch back and forth depending on what those who are in power, or those who are trying to be in power, what they want us to think. And anyway, so sure enough, after that point, as time went on, if you've been listening to the news for the last 10 or 15 years, Russia evil, right? Putin bad. Again, I'm not saying he's not. But Sachs, one of the things in this speech that he's giving, he claims that the U.S. foreign policy was co-opted by Israel, and you can see it it's presented in, I think it's a 1996 paper done during the Clinton administration by a group that included the Israelis about what the U.S. government needs to be doing in their foreign policy. And I think he refers to Wesley, General Wesley. He ran for president. You'll know, I can't remember his name. But he was the head of the NATO back in the early 2000s. And he brought out that there was a directive that we needed to start 7 wars. I think it was 7 wars. The U.S. needed to start these wars in order to manipulate what's going on in the world. And that's what we've been doing. But instead of, obviously, I'm not going to tell you everything that's in this speech. It's, I don't know, 10 minutes long or so, but packed with all kind of information that I think it's good to see this side of things. Give you something to think about. It's not something you're hearing anywhere else. I'm pretty sure. So, Sachs is calling for nations to show mutual respect. He talked about talks about things like Estonia and whatnot, not banning the Russian language being used, and those kind of things, which alienate part of their population and things like that. But anyway, make some good points. That's the main thing. So I'm sharing it with you. Take a look down below. Please sign up, like. Oh, that's subscribe. Like. Maybe I'll have another video for you over here. Make comments. Share with other people. And let's get the world seeing what's going on everywhere. At least seeing all the viewpoints, so they can do a better job of figuring out what's right, instead of just listening to the guy they have coffee with every morning, who goes on from his only perspectives and shares his views or her views from their one perspective, the one source of information that they look at. Let's look at it all so that we can really see what's really going on in the world. Have a good day.